Hello, ladies and germs. Pack your bags and dust off your halos because we are going to Ohio, where for some reason House Republican majority leaders decided that the Democratic representatives would have to go to conduct this deposition.
Are decided by the majority party, and that was decided to have it here.
While international interest in the Epstein files has been increasing, the United States Republicans' interests in the Epstein files has been decreasing.
No, there are no Republican members of Congress. There are Republican staff members. No Republican members of Congress chose to come.
So, some of the things that were released in the last batch of Epstein files indicated that Lex Wexner had more to do with Epstein's operations than anybody previously thought. And today, the Democrats of Congress carried out a deposition near Wexner's home in Ohio. It was apparently a day-long deposition, but during a break, they held a press conference.
We are on a break, and we will be going back into the deposition for the rest of the afternoon. There is no single person that was more involved in providing Jeffrey Epstein with the financial support to commit his crimes than Lex Wexner. That is already, as we all know, in the public record. We've also directly heard from survivors about Mr. Wexner, about his involvement, and their concerns as to the enormous amount of money that was essentially transferred over and paid to by Mr. Epstein. To be very clear, we know of approximately over $1 billion, it looks like. It's about $1 billion that was either transferred, provided in stocks, or given directly to Mr. Epstein by Wexner. Now, it's important to note that Mr. Wexner appears to be unaware of much of the money, as he claims, that was given over to Mr. Epstein. In fact, it's interesting that Mr. Wexner has already begun to clarify in his mind that somehow he and Mr. Epstein weren't even friends. They spent a lot of time together. Mr. Wexner admitted that he traveled to both Epstein's island as well as his other properties. And when asked even simple questions, even as it relates to Mr. Epstein being the co-president of the foundation that established the area that we're in today, Mr. Wexner had little to say. In fact, it's clear that Mr. Wexner is trying to downplay how close Jeffrey Epstein and Mr. Wexner actually were. And we should be very clear that there would be no Epstein Island, there would be no Epstein plane, there would be no money to traffic women and girls. Mr. Epstein would not be the wealthy man he was without the support of Lex Wexner. I think it's very important for us to note at this moment. There's a significant amount of questioning that has gone on. Right now, as we speak, over 50% of the Epstein files have not been released to the public and to the Congress.
So, just to recap, what they are accusing Wexner of is basically funding Epstein's entire operation. Maybe not his entire operation. He was a large investor in Epstein's business. And Wexner is trying to say that he has no idea where all that money went or how it ended up going to Epstein. He's basically saying he just doesn't know how any of this happened.
And gave him the ability to commit some of the crimes that he did. One of the witnesses, one of the victims, the survivors, has already indicated that she was assaulted at this facility, at the mansion here, Wexner's home here, that she was refused permission to leave that house. And I'm just speaking generally. The more this deposition goes on, the less Wexner knows about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. There was a deep trust between these two men. There was a deep friendship there, not only in a business sense, but Lex Wexner gave Epstein the ability to handle his children's and his family's money.
The witness that he's most likely talking about here is Maria Farmer. She gave a series of interviews with the Washington Post where she alleged that Epstein assaulted her while keeping her contained in a property that Les Wexner had deeded to him shortly beforehand. She says that while she never met Wexner, that she holds him responsible for what happened to her because the assault happened at the hands of one of his closest advisors. She claims that she was held against her will at the property by Wexner's security staff after her alleged assault until her father came to pick her up, and Farmer's mother, father, sister, and a friend all said in separate interviews that they had heard similar accounts in 1996 from her. So she has three family members and a friend who corroborate this at the time that she claims it happened. After she was assaulted, Farmer said that she locked herself in a room and called several people in New York trying to get help. She eventually managed to get a hold of her father, who agreed to come to Ohio, and he confirms that that happened. And Maria says that she called 911, but was put on hold and then was hung up on, and that she called the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. She didn't know, though, that Wexner had contracted with the sheriff's office to help protect his property. She says that when she returned to New York, she filed a police report about the assault, which the contents were later reviewed and reported on by the New York Times. She said that she was encouraged to speak to the FBI, but no one appeared to act on her reports until 2006.
Department of Justice has failed to do. We have actually sat down and listened, not once, not twice, but on multiple occasions, to the survivors. As you saw last week, A.G. Bondi wouldn't even turn and look at the survivors, let alone allow her DOJ to do their job, which is to investigate. So here we are as the legislative branch doing our jobs and trying to do oversight. Let me tell you, the survivors have said over and over and over, follow the money. That was the one thing that they told us, as well as their attorneys. Follow the money. Well, we're following the money. But I'm going to be perfectly honest with you and tell you that we are running into dead ends at this moment. I will tell you that once this record comes out, you will see that you most likely will be left with more questions than answers. It is almost inconceivable to be missing the amounts of money that are missing, and somehow Mr. Wexner have no idea. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to, because again, as a trained litigator, think about some of the themes that we keep hearing. We know that there were supposedly these fraudulent modeling agencies that were set up all over the country, and girls would go in thinking that they were going to get their chance at modeling. Victoria's Secret. We know Victoria's Secret was known specifically for their fashion shows. We know that there are reports of girls that went in thinking that they were potentially going in to model. These are not coincidences. There's two things that have been clear, is that there were always young girls seemingly looking for an opportunity to model, and there were always rich and powerful people on the other side, dangling a carrot, saying, I will give you the life that you're seeking. Yet ultimately, the stories are the same. They're stories of abuse. They're stories of trafficking at the highest level. And I will tell you one thing that was remembered for sure was when asked about Donald Trump and Epstein, and whether or not they had been in the same room and what that looked like. He didn't quite remember, but he imagined that, yes, that possibly happened, because he did remember that Donald Trump also would like to show up to the Victoria's Secret runway shows. Now, that was a little odd to him, he said, because Donald Trump was not engaged in fashion whatsoever. But he does recall that. He also said something that I feel like we've heard over and over and over, which is that Epstein liked to drop people's names. So he'd imagine that that may have been one of the names that he dropped. Listen, if Mr. Wexner is honest about his intentions in helping us, then we're asking him, if he doesn't remember, then go ahead and turn over all of your financial records, because we need to follow the money, because that is exactly what the survivors told us to do.
This was obviously a very, very close relationship, and so far what we have seen is a denial of that relationship.
Representative Cockett there did a good job of illustrating the mechanics of how this operation worked. From what I have read in the files too, there's a lot of people who are named who are models from like Slovenia and places like that. So it also just goes to show how big this could potentially be and how many people can be involved with it.
Another important theme that has come up today is that Lex Wexner is actually tied to other sex trafficking and child abuse scandals here in Ohio, around the country. There are reports of payments that were made to a gynecologist at Ohio State University, and that money went through Jeffrey Epstein but came from Lex Wexner.
Yeah, so you did hear that right. That was one of the weirder things that came out of this, was that apparently Wexner paid a gynecologist incredibly large sums of money through Epstein. When he was asked about that, he just said he used them for his wife and daughter. Maybe my mind is too innocent. I don't know what else you would employ somebody like that for, but I mean, in the context that we're talking about, it's strange. But at this point, they're getting to the end of their break. They're closing down and taking some questions from the press.
He's an elderly gentleman. Memories fade, but the reputation of Jeffrey Epstein is very clear. Everyone around Jeffrey Epstein knew exactly what he's up to, and to spend that much time, to give that much trust to Jeffrey Epstein, and then to say, I don't remember seeing any young girls. I didn't hear anything about Jeffrey Epstein. The fact that there are no Republicans here today. I wish there were Republicans, because sex trafficking should not be a D versus R issue. It should be a bipartisan issue. Everybody should be invested in finding the truth right now. And the fact that we've had so little cooperation from the Republicans on the House Oversight Committee, that the DOJ has actively tried to obstruct this investigation, that is shameful.
He claimed that he was on the island for 1 hour and that he walked around with his family, and I asked him if any other individuals were there, and he said no. And that was a kind of a repetitive thing that he said as well when we asked about if he had been to another property. He said, I was there for 1 hour, and I go to many places for just 1 hour.
And did he speak about any involvement with survivors, even here on his
No. He denied everything.
Not everything. And quite frankly, it would have been nice to have seen more remorse. Yes.
Mr. Wexner is 88 years old. He's also been missing Wexner Medical Center board meetings where he's chair. Can you describe his demeanor, how he is? He's an elderly gentleman, of course, but...
So they've brought this up a couple of times, but basically people are apparently worried that since Wexner is old and apparently hasn't been showing up at board meetings, so this journalist says, that he may not be a reliable witness. So that's why they're asking about that, but he is about to address that.
He's lucid. I think he's certainly capable of answering these questions. There's no deterioration in his mental faculties. So he's a competent witness.
Lots of times in these situations where people are testifying to some sort of congressional committee or something like that, they prepare an opening statement, and Wexner's opening statement was released prior to his deposition. He says, hey, what the fuck? He says that he's happy to testify and correct the outrageous statements that have been made against him, and that he was naive, foolish, and gullible to put any trust in Jeffrey Epstein. He called him a abuser, a crook, and a liar, and said he cut ties with him 20 years ago, and that he was not a participant or co-conspirator in any of his illegal activities. And he said that he is embarrassed and regrets being duped by Epstein. He does offer an acknowledgement for the survivors of Epstein's crimes and the pain he inflicted on them. He talks about himself and his accomplishments. He talks about his business, how he came to meet Epstein, how Epstein was a clever, diabolical master manipulator. He often told me about his famous acquaintances and important positions he's held, and at times I experienced what seemed to be random chance encounters, probably orchestrated by Epstein, with prominent individuals who said they knew Epstein. Over the course of many years, he carefully used his acquaintance with important individuals to curate an aura of legitimacy that he used to expand his network of acquaintances and apparent credibility even farther. This does go along with what other people have said about Epstein, was that he really liked to connect people. Basically, Epstein was a kingmaker. He was, or is described to be, somebody who was in the business of creating successful people. He denies any knowledge of Epstein being in the company of a minor girl. He led him to believe he was in 2 serious long-term relationships, both of whom he contemplated marrying. He said he was never in his airplane and did not give Epstein the New York townhouse. He said he purchased it from him for what I was told was the appraised value. After we moved out, I never set foot in that house again. I visited Epstein's island only once, shortly after he purchased it, when Abigail, our young children, and I stopped by for a few hours, which is interesting because here he says a few hours, but we just heard Congress people say that he said it was 1 hour. So I would be curious if they maybe got that incorrect. So far, that's all we really know about this deposition. Hopefully, we will be able to see the video of that deposition soon so that we know exactly what was said. There doesn't seem to be any guaranteed date about when that will come out. Anyway, I have to go make some chicken pot pie, and I'm tired because I've been researching all day for the next video that I'm going to put out, hopefully. Well, the next, research video that I'm going to put out, which is why it takes so long to fix the economy, and how has the Trump administration's policies actually affected the economy, because there seems to be a lot of confusion out there about what is actually happening. So I would like to figure that out. So stay tuned for that. Also, I did sign up for Buy Me a Coffee. Everything that you may want to contribute to that will go back into the channel. I know it's a little bit early, but I just figured I may as well do it now. Like I said, we'll go back into the channel, with the exception of if I run out of money and my cat runs out of his prescription cat food, I may use it to get him a can of cat food. But other than that, it's all going right back into this. So, please subscribe and watch out for that video about the economy.